expert authority world. You probably have a business, you might be thinking about starting one. But what if you want to exit? What if you want a proven system? Do you own a franchise? Have you thought about one? There are so many great opportunities out there. And I know when we're talking about business, people think of local businesses, small businesses, medium businesses, but have you ever considered a franchise? I have. There's actually a few that are on my mind right now, and I'm super excited to have none other than Patrick Elsner on today's episode, where we're going to be talking about, is a franchise right for you and how to find the right one. And maybe it's a complement to an existing business, or maybe you're tired of it, you want to exit, and you want something simpler to deal with. I'm going to bring him up right after we thank our sponsor. Every business needs a book, including yours. Visit freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com today to learn the 7 steps to publish and promote your nonfiction lead and profit-generating business book in 8 weeks. Once again, that's freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Patrick Elsner. Patrick, how are you feeling today?
Great, Mario. Thanks. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I have always been fascinated by franchises and the pros and cons to them and everything, and I know you're the expert. So with your extensive background in helping successful companies, how did you choose franchising?
So my career started in selling advertising to local businesses, and a lot of them were franchise owners. And I couldn't articulate it at a young 20-something, but what I understood was that the difference between that small independent business and that franchise were the systems and infrastructure that are warranted and needed in any business, whether it's a McDonald's or an independent flower shop. And so I could see the differences. And that's how I got to embrace franchising, because a number of my clients that I sold advertising to were franchise owners.
Okay. Was there any franchise that drew you in more than the other one?
Yeah, probably Stanley Steamer. There's a guy here in St. Louis named Phil Dean, who's one of the largest, most successful franchise owners with Stanley Steamer. And he's built this huge apparatus and, got probably 80 trucks on the road that cover the
Wow.
metro area. And he has built this huge, empire, sucking water out of people's carpets. And he's really built this huge business out of cleaning carpets. And Phil was probably the inspiration. The interesting thing about Phil was he has then built businesses that sell ancillary products and services to other Stanley Steamer franchise owners. So
Oh,
pure
cool.
entrepreneur, but took the franchise model and really built a huge multi-million dollar operation.
So you had alluded to something that about the systems and processes that most small businesses don't have that you need. Can you speak on what you feel are the most important? If you're saying, well, I want to do my own business on my own or start a franchise, what should someone be looking for as far as these better be in place if you even want a chance of it being successful?
Yeah, I think the continuity is what customers expect. I mean, that's why franchising like, McDonald's has been so successful, because whether you're going to McDonald's in Keokuk, Iowa or Los Angeles, you're expecting that continuity. And that's what systems and infrastructures mean for the customer experience. They want that commonality. And oftentimes that small independent business really doesn't have that, and they struggle. The book that I always recommend, Michael Gerber's The E-Myth, he talks about why businesses need that infrastructure. And it could be a small business or a large business, but having that roadmap for the employees to follow and the customers to embrace, really, this is a key thing here.
What would you say is second most important next to the systems and processes?
I would probably say common marketing. I mean, the message that you're putting out there to the marketplace, to the consumers, they want to understand the business, the value proposition that the business is offering, whether it's, a $5 foot long or a 99-cent hot dog at 7-Eleven. You're looking for the marketing message to have the continuity to reach out and grab the customer at the point they're ready to buy.
Let's go into more detail with that because I see you've worked with so many companies here: Ford, Bank of America, American Airlines, Anheuser-Busch, State Farm. These are not small companies. And I love that you have the advertising background because one of my favorite things is marketing messaging and helping people. I mean, if you don't have your message dialed in, what do you have?
Yeah, you're really flying without a plan. I mean, you can't imagine, going out and flying an airplane not knowing where you're going. And it's the same thing with business ownership. And for those people that I placed in franchising, Mario, they'll often say to me, Patrick, I don't have a business idea. Well, the franchise is that business in a box. It's like buying furniture from IKEA. They're going to give you the instructions. You just got to be able to follow that plan that they give you, that roadmap. And that's really the key. It's going to mitigate your risk, doesn't guarantee success, but it's certainly going to mitigate your risk as a business owner.
When you're working with people, if I said, all right, I want you to pick the best franchise for me, do you find that certain franchises have a stronger value prop or marketing message, or would you say across the board everything's very dialed in and you're just left with, do you want to deal with fast food or do you want to deal with a cleaning business? Do you want to deal with housing or do you want to deal with something online? How do you decide that for you, the people you're helping?
Yeah, well, so 21 years in the business, Mario, what I do is I have to vet the franchises because
Okay.
my reputation is on the line with these candidates. The last thing I want to have a candidate come back and say, Patrick, why did you suggest XYZ brand? It's a terrible concept, and the franchise owners are all failing. So I do my own vetting on the front end. And I always tell people, you're never going to find the perfect business, but at least when you talk to these owners, I think it's the 20-60-20 rule. 20% of the owners are superstars, 20% of they're struggling, 60% are in the middle. The question is, why is one guy struggling? Why is another guy doing extremely well? What's the difference? A lot of it still comes down to the owner operator. But if you have the right infrastructure, you're giving people a really good shot at being successful.
So there's no perfect business, but you'd say that if you find one that's a fit for you and has the right systems and they have the marketing message dialed in, you're probably 80, 90% of the way there.
Yeah, it's all about risk mitigation. I mean, that's why, people say to me, well, Patrick, why do I need a franchise for that? I said, well, you're 50 years old. You've been working at Motorola for 25 years. You've never owned a business at 50. You're not 30 anymore. And so you need to curb that learning curve, shorten that learning curve rather. And so that's why people get into a franchise. It's not a guarantee, it's not a silver bullet, but at least you
You
know
get
that
closer to
you've
it.
got a fighting chance.
Okay. You bring up a good question. So if someone is 30 looking to get in versus 40 or 50, how long should someone expect, hey, if I outlie 100 grand, 250, 500, maybe only 20 grand, tell me the pricing someone should expect because I know there are franchises for 25 grand and there's also like you mentioned a few times the Golden Arches. Last I knew they were what 1.5 2 million just to get started.
Right. Yeah. The number one reason businesses fail is undercapitalization. And it doesn't matter if it's a franchise or independent. You
Hmm.
can't run out of money. I've seen this so many times. We've all seen it. Businesses opening up, they have a grand opening, they have a flurry of customers, and then 6 months later, they're out of business. And it has oftentimes to do with they just ran out of money. So getting into the right franchise, it's like shopping for a home, Mario. We don't look at $1 million homes if our budget's 250. We focus first on the investment, the return, and the role that the franchise owner is going to play.
I see. So when you're helping people with that 250 to $1 million, is there any difference in the the profit margins? You're saying you don't want to run out of money, so do you feel that most people are just trying to throw more customers at it and they have too thin of margins, or are there certain businesses where you go, you know what, if you have interest in this and this, these are statistically like, let's use the Stanley steamer. I would just venture to say, you don't need, and correct me if I'm wrong, I completely could be, but a restaurant, you for sure need the building, you need a lot of staff, you need the lights, tables, all these other things. Having owned a lawn care power washing company as my first business, I know that the overhead is just less, and I would imagine with Stanley Steamer, if you have enough trucks and equipment and maybe a warehouse somewhere or just somewhere to store it, I would just bet that it's less capital than a restaurant or anything that you need a brick and mortar for people to walk into. Do those type of businesses have more profit built in inherently than other ones?
Yeah, any non-retail service business is always going to have a higher profit margin and a lower cost of entry. I mean, if I'm
Okay.
building a $1.5 million, Wendy's restaurant with a drive-through and a play area and a
I used to
dining
work there
room,
too.
okay, there you go. So 1.5 million. Now, to open up a Stanley Steamer, your investment might be $250,000 because only real estate you probably need is a light warehouse space in the middle of your territory because people are not coming to you. You're going to the business, you're going to the homeowner providing that service.
What are some other good businesses next to Stanley Steamer that are in that category? So you're saying non-retail. I picked up on that, and
Mhm.
service-based, like carpet cleaning, window washing, stuff like that.
Yeah. Monday we had the lawn mowed by a third party company. Tuesday we had the windows cleaned. Thursday we're getting the gutters done.
Yep,
Next week
gutters.
we're going to get the house painted. We live in a service based economy. We pay other people to do the work, whether we don't want to do it or we're not capable of doing it. I don't want to get up on a ladder and paint. Don't have the time to do it either way.
You
So
and me
you're
both.
paying other people to do the work.
Yeah, it's always good because and what would it be for a window cleaning company? Would you say to get started? So you're saying quarter mil for Stanley Steamer, but what about window cleaning or the gutter?
Yeah, probably 100, and a half, all in everything you need. Yeah. These are reasonable businesses to get into. Again, it has everything to do with a time starved society, that dual income, and you've got kids and you're running them to soccer practice and you're making dinner. You're willing to pay other people other to do the work for you.
So who would you say a franchise is the best fit for? Is it someone 30 that has 40 years left and can really knock it out of the park, or is it really for someone that goes, I am 45, 50, 55, I have a substantial amount of expandable income. I want to be more passive with it and I can get people to run it.
Yeah, it's really more about your end result that you're looking for. If you
Okay.
want to keep that job in corporate America and do something on the side, there's nothing wrong with that. There's a guy that I placed in Northern Virginia that is opening up Great Clips. And then there's a guy here in St. Louis that owns 85 Great Clips. The guy in Northern Virginia is keeping his job. The guy with 85 Great Clips, he doesn't need a job. 85 Great Clips, you're making some serious bank.
Talk to us about that. With you start with one. Do you generally recommend people start with one franchise or multiple? And how long does it take? I mean, that's impressive. So the Wendy's, I literally worked there for about a month and a half or two when I was in college. But Brian, the owner, I think he owned 13 at the time, and twice a year I'll swing by, be like, "Hey, how's it? Just just whatever." And I'm like, "Does Brian still own this?" And he's like, "Yeah, I last I heard he has like 47 now."
Yeah, you're never going to make money with one typically, so you need multiple. What most franchisors do, Mario, is they work out a development schedule. You're going to open up one Wendy's,
Oh,
say,
today
one
or this year.
Wendy's. Yeah, you're going to open up one Wendy's, per year, whatever it is going to be, and you roll out that development schedule.
Interesting. So, why do you say you don't really make? Do you not make much money with one, or you don't make any money with one?
You don't make much. I mean,
Okay.
if you own a Gray Clips, and I'm just throwing out, back of the envelope calculations. Let's say a Gray Clips does $400,000 in annual revenue,
Mm-hmm.
and you're taking home, say, $60,000 of that.
Yeah,
That's not going to replace your corporate income. But if you have 85 of those, well, run the numbers. It's pretty significant.
it's more.
Hmm.
So when you're helping people, what are the first few things you look at? Because I know we've talked about a variety of businesses, and you find the best fit for them. How do you determine, hey, I'm going to put you in this type of industry versus this one? And what would you say the average budget is someone coming in?
Skill sets are the biggest determinant after, capital requirements. So there's a book called Now Discover Your Strengths. He says you can't teach a rabbit to swim, you can't teach a turtle to hop. And so if you do something that plays your strengths, that's going to be the biggest factor. So when I interview candidates, talk a lot about skill sets. That and that alone is probably the biggest driver. Then in terms of investment, you really need to have at least $100,000 cash. It's kind of the low water mark, and then it just goes up from there.
Do you work with Subway, Wendy's, McDonald's, and those, or do you stick more with the service? I know we've used them as examples because everyone knows them, but I used to consider a Subway at one point. Do you work with any of them?
Yeah, some of those brands we do, some of them we don't. Different brands are willing to work with consultants. Quite frankly, there's a lot of brands that I would not represent because I know enough being on the inside that they're junk. Like any industry, you've got your bad actors. So there are definitely brands that I would avoid and I would never show whether or not they're willing to compensate me or not.
Interesting. You have my curiosity peaked. Is this something you're willing to share any, or do I have to wait till the camera's off?
Well, look, you can go on and Google SBA loan failure rates by franchises, and
Oh,
you'll see your own damning information. Or if there's a franchise you like, go on there and put the name of the franchise and then follow it up by scam. Put the word scam in after the name of the franchise. Do your own research. Again, like anything, you're going to have some bad actors in there, and that's the challenge. If I'm a novice and I just decided to start googling franchises, your eyes are going to glaze over. And I got my copy of Entrepreneur Magazine's Franchise 500. There's 500 of the best brands, and where do you even begin to start? I mean, it's overwhelming for anybody.
so it's
Just
the
like
due
looking for a
diligence,
home.
like anything.
Yeah, you're going to do your due diligence. Exactly right.
So 500 on Entrepreneur. How many options are there total?
There's thousands of franchises that are out there. A couple hundred come in every year, a couple hundred go out. But I'm going to say probably somewhere between 3 and 4,000 franchise licenses. Now, some of those are going to be regional. Some of them aren't going to be available, in certain states and certain regions. But
Sure.
probably 3 to 4,000.
Okay. So let me ask you this. I know we're getting short on time, but who would you say is your talk to me about your biggest success story?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anyone
So,
that's in
oh,
addition to the Stanley Steamer? Because that's impressive, but is there anyone
yeah.
in addition to or even bigger than?
Yeah, probably not as big. I would say there's a couple of people that I've placed that I would say have gone on to build multi-million dollar businesses. I placed a gentleman down in Houston that built a restoration business. Last
Hmm.
year, he did $19 million in revenue. I placed a gentleman down in West Palm Beach, Florida. He works in senior care, helping seniors age in place in their home. Probably did $10 million last year. So there are definitely success stories. And look, there are people that I placed in franchising that have gone out of business. And that's something that a lot of consultants may not want to talk about, but that's a fact. I mean, business ownership is not perfect. It's not for everybody, but guess what? So is a job. Citigroup just laid off 20,000 people, and everybody thought, oh, I'm going to retire from Citigroup. No, no, you're not. You're going to get laid off.
Google too with the sales department for replacing it with AI. I think it was
Right.
like
There you
I don't
go.
know if it was 5,000 or 50,000, but it was a substantial amount. I was
Right.
Yeah, and that's the thing. None of it's perfect. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll also say this to your credit: when you have a successful business like you do, you're not only placing 5 people a decade. So when you have some volume, no way it's ever going to be 100% in any industry. Just like real estate, like you might sell 9 houses in a row or 90 in a row, but you start doing volume, everyone's going to have that 1.5 bad. Mine is like 1.5%, 1.5%, like out of 100. it's like, okay, this was just a weird scenario or something.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
I don't think that's a
it's
failing rate. Was that 97 and a half or 98 and a half?
yeah. Yeah, it's pretty good batting average. Look, George Brett used to come into my buddy's restaurant. He would say if I can bat 350, one out of every three at bats, I'm doing great. It's amazing numbers when you think about it for a major league batter. So it still comes down to figuring out working with the right consultant. Just like anything, realtors, 80% of the volume is done by 20% of the real estate agents. You want to work with the superstars in your market to figure out which house to buy. It's the same thing with consultants. I always tell people, look me up on LinkedIn, look at the reviews, watch the videos, do your own comparison. See what, who you think you want to work with.
Yeah, so much comes down to the relationships and the trust and everything. When we're doing books for people, one of the first things I always ask them, I was like, show me your testimonials. Like, those reviews, those testimonials. It doesn't matter if it's a book, if it's a client, if it's, guest for the show, host for the show, anything. One of my favorites, I'll give everyone a secret right now. Speaking, public speaking. Most people
Mm-hmm.
go, oh, here's my client testimonial. Here's, this testimonial, like a referral testimonial here. If you're speaking to a room, everyone in the room is a legit testimonial. I would never
Mm-hmm.
advise anyone say, oh, have them give a client testimony if they're not a legit client. But I would go up to people and just say, how'd you like my presentation? And then there was a point, and truthfully, they were coming up to me saying, I enjoyed it. And I say, I appreciate that. Would you mind saying that on video? Pull out your cell phone. There was 35 or 50 people in the audience. I got 11 alone in about 8 minutes just from
It's great.
asking. So anything can be social proof. So that's great that, you have helped so many people with it. Before I ask the next part, what would you say if someone's considering a consultant like yourself? What should they look for to, obviously yours is all legit, but what usually would be a red flag if someone's checking out, 10 different people, what you should look out for?
Yeah, again, it comes down to tenure, Mario. Again, I don't want to work with the rookie real estate agent, whether I'm looking at commercial or residential. Bring me the real estate agent who's been in the market for 25, 30 years, who sold thousands of homes,
Mm-hmm.
because ultimately anybody can show you the home, but who's going to negotiate the contract? It's the same thing with franchise consulting.
Okay.
Being in this industry now for more than 2 decades, I'm going to bring a wealth of experience. You can't buy that. It's, it's time in the chair, it's placements, it's working with multiple franchisors. This is what I do. This is all I've done for the past 20 plus years.
Yeah, that experience that you're not going to get from just watching a single YouTube video and helping three
Right.
people. I gotcha. All right, I got a question for you here for the wheel of whatever, yellow or black.
Black.
Nice. All right. You said you've been doing this for 20 plus years. If it wasn't for franchising, what else have you considered?
Well, I wanted to be Tom Brokaw, but that ship has long since sailed.
Okay. Well, it
You know who
sounds like
Tom Brokaw is. I
yeah,
got for
yeah.
a second there. I thought
No,
you didn't know who Tom
no,
Brokaw was.
newscaster. I remember him.
Okay.
Um, what intrigued you about that?
Well, ever since I was a little kid, I was like a radio geek, and I was always fascinated with, radio and TV personalities, and that's really what I wanted to be. And then ended up getting into advertising, and here I am, after this long illustrious career.
Well, it sounds like you found something you like, but yeah, it's I actually it's surreal to be hosting a show because I've always liked public speaking and helping people, but I actually have cassettes. And I've joked about bringing them on for some episodes. I have these color coded cassettes with this, when you're a kid, you have that toy, that little cassette player you can
Oh,
talk into.
sure, Fisher Price, yeah.
Yes. And I would commentate on just TV shows like, oh, I can't believe they did this. Oh, that's funny. And yeah, it's surreal. Like I didn't do anything with it for 20 years. Then all of a sudden I'm like, now's the time. So it's interesting.
That's right.
We're going to thank the sponsor and come back for the imperfect action round. Every business needs a book, including yours. Visit freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com today to learn the 7 steps to publish and promote your nonfiction lead and profit-generating business book in 8 weeks. Once again, that's freebusinessbookpublishingcourse.com. And we are back with the imperfect action round. Patrick, are you ready to take imperfect action?
Absolutely.
Got 3 questions for you. The first one is, what is the fastest path to the cash?
Doing something that you're good at and it plays to your strengths. That's absolutely the biggest, fastest way to doing something that where you can make a lot of money.
Okay. Number 2, what is the biggest problem you see your prospects making and the fastest way for them to fix it?
Yeah, it's the fear. They're going at it and they get scared and they whimper away because of fear. The people that I place in franchising, especially ones that have gone on to be really successful, they just go forth and whatever hits them, they're able to conquer it. And that's the biggest thing is the fear. It gets in the way of people.
So it sounds like what I'm hearing, and what I actually was telling our team the other day, is it sounds like you're saying rolling with the punches is one of your greatest assets.
You have to. I mean, again, business ownership isn't easy. I was listening to a podcast of the woman has the Atlanta restaurant. I think it's called the Slutty Vegan, and her business burned down. I mean, talk about a buzzkill. But when your
Yeah.
restaurant burns down, how do you even get back and get out of bed in the morning? And she got back up, and she's built this huge restaurant enterprise.
Wow. That's I can't even imagine that beyond major buzzkill.
Yeah.
I've had stuff happen much less than that, and it was kind of I remember someone 10, 12 years ago going, it sounds like the wind got knocked out of your sails, and I'm like, oh yeah, I can't even imagine that. That would suck. But you know what? This just came to me. How would you define resiliency versus rolling with the punches? Because I think there's a difference, but they're very closely related.
Yeah, it's remembering that life and business ownership is a marathon, not a sprint. I mean, what happens today is not going to derail your success or your journey. It's just a simple, pothole in the road. And then, you're going to have some smooth roads. You're going to have some good times. You're going to have some wins. And so it's like what I said about George Brett, 1 out of 3 times at the bat, he's going to get a hit. That's really what you're looking for, is that keeping that batting average high.
Okay, very good. Last one, third one, not the last one, but third one. What is the best way to maximize customer lifetime value?
Well, I think it's delivering on the promises that you offer right out of the gate. I mean, if you're derailing your process and people are not seeing that, the horse isn't going to leave the barn. You got to have a promise that you can deliver on every time.
Very good. I agree. Um, as a publisher, I got to ask you about books. You mentioned one. What other books would you recommend to Expert Authority World?
Well, again, I like Now Discover Your Strengths. I like um, Michael Gerber's book as well, The E Myth. Um, in terms of franchising, I like Street Smart Franchising by Joe Matthews. I think those are really key as well.
Very good. Thank you for those. Where would you like people to learn more?
Real simple. It's a very easy URL. It's franinside.com. So franinside.com. You can find all my contact information in there, FAQ page, over 100 plus written testimonials as well.
Wow, impressive. I'll make sure that's on eainterviews.com for your episode. Patrick, it's been a pleasure. Thank you much. Thank you so much for sharing what you have.
Thank you, Mario.
All right, Expert Authority World, we have another great episode here today. I'll see you on the next one.